Paris. City of love, romance and dreams. So they say. I used to say it too. But ever since that day, the day of the murder, I've always associated my beloved Paris with death. I was at home having a bath when my editor called.
Collard, get your ass over to the Palais Royal now. You got an interview. With Pierre Carchon. Yes, the Pierre Carchon. No photos, so leave your gear at home. He asked for you personally. Don't ask me why. Anyhow, this could be big, so if he makes a pass, don't forget. Just smile, say yes, and keep taking notes.
So charming and so very apt. Pierre Carchon was a media king, a national hero, and one of the most infamous adulterers in Europe. He and his wife Imelda were just one step down from royalty. Whoa, I hate mimes, but unless you humor them, they don't go away. Here I was, the palace of the Media King and the Ice Queen. I pressed the doorbell and set in motion a chain of events which would change my life forever.
Yes? What is it?
Madame, my name is Nicole Collard. I'm here to see Monsieur Carchon.
Come up, we're on the first floor.
Madame Carchon, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Yes, I'm sure.
The Ice Queen was certainly living up to her reputation. Will you be staying for the interview?
Mademoiselle, I know little of my husband's business affairs, and I care even less. I certainly have no intention of watching him pore over yet another pretty little journalist.
Pretty? You're too kind, madame.
The talented and very beautiful Mademoiselle Collard. Such a pleasure to meet you at last.
Monsieur Carchon, I am honored.
Oh, I'm sure you are.
Call me Pierre, please. But I do not flatter you idly. I was a friend of your father. He was a great man.
My father, he never mentioned.
He and I were very close. And then his death. So tragic. I must... Imelda, your damned cat's in my study again. Another Ming vase, I suppose. Excuse me for one moment, my dear girl.
You journalists are getting younger each year.
Perhaps it's the rest of the world getting older, madame. That was no cat. My God, what? Monsieur Carchon!
He's dead. I must call the police. You'd better stay here.
There was a man. It was the mime. Do you think he...
Well, I believe we can rule out suicide, don't you?
No wonder they called her the Ice Queen. She would have been top of my list of suspects if I hadn't seen the attacker myself. And if I hadn't come across a couple of murders just like this already. One of the most important men in Europe murdered And here was I, Nicole Collard, alone at the scene of the crime. Should I wait for the cops? Or start my own investigation? It was a no-brainer. Mimes and guns don't usually go together, but I had an idea that this was no ordinary mime. I'd come across this murderer before, and written about him. The costume killer, at least that's what I'd called him. His lifeless eyes stared blankly at nothing. I closed his eyes. It was the least I could do for the poor fellow. Some people hate searching corpses for clues. Me, I'm okay with it. Reminds me of an old boyfriend. Carchon had been shot. In his pocket, I found a ticket stamped Bateau de la Conciergerie. Taking the ticket meant I tampered with the evidence. There was no going back now. It was a boat ticket stamped Bateau de la Conciergerie. When I was a little girl, Papa used to take me on the Bateau Mouche as a treat. It was one of my hair clips. My favorite, in fact. It must have fallen when I was knocked down. I opened his eyes. Best to leave the crime scene as I found it. A bust of Pierre Carchon, humble servant of La France. A bust of Pierre Carchon. You had to hand it to the Ice Queen. She sure knew her fabrics. A small round piece of glass had been cut out of the pane. This was a professional job. This was the work of the mime. Unless the cat was in on it too. The mime had broken the window to gain entry. I didn't want to cut myself and leave blood on the glass. Call me old-fashioned, but I like to keep my DNA to myself. Not a good idea to touch the broken glass. Your original 18th century high-security window handle. The killer must have used a ladder to reach the window. He was long gone. Guess he folded that ladder up, popped it in his pocket and took it with him. The bookcase was filled with obscure first editions. It contained rows of titles I didn't recognize. Programming the Z80 by Rodney Sachs. Ah! The romance, the drama, the great classic novels had a lot to learn. Pierre Carchon again. His eyes seemed to follow me around the room. The police could turn up at any minute. Somewhere there were clues to the murder, and I needed to find them. A fine Baroque door. It would look great in my apartment. The door was locked. A medieval pageant. Original, no doubt. The tapestry must have cost a fortune. A Louis XIV table with an antique cloth. Imelda had taste. But hey, with a husband that rich, taste is easy. A magnificent antique table. A beautiful cloth had been draped over the table. It was embroidered with an unusual cross. I reckoned that cloth might just turn out to be useful. The cloth was embroidered with an unusual symbol. There was a tiny hole in the tabletop. Part of the inlay had been chipped away. Even my fingernail wouldn't fit into such a small hole. It wouldn't fit. Aha! Nico, you are just so damn good at this stuff. A key had been hidden in a secret compartment. A modern key. Instead of comforting Imelda, I was ransacking her flat. Why? Because there was something going on here, and I had to get answers before the cops arrived. And hey, she'd been rude to me, so she had it coming. Imelda had talent, but I certainly wasn't going to tell her that. It was a tube of acrylic paint, French ultramarine. Just the colour I was after for my bathroom.
I'm sorry, I have to go. Someone is...
Young lady, what are you doing? Oh, this paint. It's my favourite colour.
For God's sake, keep the damn stuff.
Even the telephone was antique. Never trust anyone who owns a phone like that. There was no one I needed to phone, not until I had solved this case. It was the way out. A beautiful, expensive, antique way out, but the way out nevertheless. I thought of leaving, but was sure there was more to find. Imelda looked shocked, but still every bit as hostile. Excuse me, madame.
Yes?
I am so sorry for your loss, madame.
No, you're not. You're a journalist. Journalists don't feel sorry.
Not true.
We shall see.
Why did your husband send for me? What did he want to discuss?
I have no idea. His business was his business.
He never told you anything?
No, and frankly, I preferred it that way.
How did your husband know my father?
I have no idea.
You didn't know him? Pierre Collard?
Pierre knew a lot of people I didn't know, most of them women.
So, her husband took secret boat trips. Did she really need to see the ticket? Would you like to see my favourite hair clip?
What a ridiculous question. Of course not.
Huh. Another time, I guess. You're upset, madame. Please take this.
That is the lace cloth from the table. What can you be thinking?
Imelda might not have been so cool with me poking around if I'd shown her the key I'd found. The last thing she needed to talk about was paint. Why would a mime want to kill your husband?
Pierre had plenty of enemies. Half the husbands in Paris for a start. This is quite a scoop for you. I suppose you're already inventing the headlines.
Just because I am a journalist.
Don't patronise me. You're all cut from the same cloth. Do you have any moral sense at all?
Yes, that's why I do this job.
You do it to see your name in print.
As if. My editor gets the byline, I just do the work.
Well, don't expect my sympathy.
The police will be here soon, madame. Is there anybody you would like me to contact? Family, friends?
No, I have no family. Pierre and I were... He was all I had, really. Not much, was it? The dutiful wife. That was my role. He never talked, never let me in.
I know one thing, madame.
What?
If you want to find out who killed your husband, then you let me do the job, not the police.
Why? How do I know I can trust you?
Because you have no choice. The police will take weeks. in which time your own life may be in danger.
What?
Believe me, this killer has struck before, and he will strike again. Who is to know that you are not next on his list?
I don't know.
All I need is a few more minutes to look around before the police come.
You really do have a moral sense, don't you? I trust so few people, and I share your low opinion of the police. Here, take this. It's the key to the drawing room next to the library at the end of the hall. It was Pierre's room. I rarely went in there. I couldn't. I was too scared of what I might find.
Thank you. I promise you won't regret this. It was the drawing room key. Now we were getting somewhere. Even the light switch looked impressive. I didn't need the lights on. It was light enough already. The sofa was antique. For one horrible moment, I had an image of a naked Carchon wriggling around on it with a young journalist. Oh. This wasn't the time for me to lie on the sofa doing my Marie Antoinette impression, though it is very popular at parties, especially with gay guys. Don't ask me why. The painting showed the Carchons together, in love. As the poet said, the past is a different country. Or did I read that in a fortune cookie? The Carchons, noblesse oblige. The painting was attached firmly to the wall. Aha! There was a small button hidden in the picture frame. There was the very faintest of clicks. Behind the picture was a safe. The safe looked pretty secure. The safe was locked. I needed the key. It was the wrong kind of key. The safe's lock was too secure for me to pick. How come it always works in movies, huh? There was a strange stone cylinder in the safe. In the safe was some kind of artifact. There were strange symbols on its surface. It looked like the printer's blocks I'd made at art school. If there was one thing I'd learned about symbols, they are always important. But these symbols scratched into stone were impossible to read. I needed to find a way of printing them. At least the stone was round. But what could I use for ink? And what could I print on? Sure, I was stealing, but I knew Imelda didn't know about the artifact, and Carchon was past caring. It was a back door. Locked, not surprising, really. As expected, the desk was yet another priceless antique. Yawn. The blotter and in tray had clearly been placed with mathematical precision. My heart skipped a beat. It was a carved elephant. But not just any carved elephant. It had been made by my father. I knew for certain because in my apartment I had its exact twin, carved into a box he had made. So Carchon had known my father. They really must have been friends. It was the beautiful elephant my father had carved. I decided to take the carved elephant. It clearly meant nothing to Imelda.
Did you find anything useful?
No, nothing, I'm sorry. And right now she had enough to deal with. I decided a white lie wouldn't do any harm. The real Imelda was clearly emerging. This carving, do you know anything about it?
It was Pierre's. What does the statue have to do with...
Please, I need to know.
He was given it by a friend, something to do with Africa.
He never explained any more.
No, but I think it was important to him, always on display. Why?
It was carved by my father.
Oh, I see. I didn't know.
Just one thing. I know this is going to sound strange, but did your husband ever mention, did he ever talk to you about a penguin? Or a snowman?
What? I don't understand.
He never mentioned people dressed up as penguins.
Nico, I don't know what you're talking. My dear, you should go before the police arrive. There will be many awkward questions. I am grateful that you stayed. You've been so kind.
Please, call if there is anything I can do.
I'd misjudged her. She had every reason to be bitter, living with a guy like Carchon.
From the sound of it, no one and nothing was safe around him. Maybe I should have interrogated the cat after all. Madame Carchon,
Please call me Imelda. We hardly need the formalities now, do we?
Did Monsieur Carchon say nothing to you about my father?
No, I'm sorry. He never mentioned him.
Thank you. Let me give you the key back. I didn't need it anymore. Would you like to take the elephant back?
No, my dear. You should keep it.
She'd know I'd broken into her husband's safe if I showed her the artifact. That would have been insane. I was sure that there was more to find. I just had to keep looking. The in-tray, like everything else in this place, was beautiful. One day I was going to have an in-tray like that, even if I had to sell my apartment to pay for it. I didn't want to take the tray, but I knew that I could use it. It was a sheet of blotting paper in a leather holder. Its cracked surface looked ancient, reminded me of its owner. I didn't need a sheet of blotting paper. Not while it was blank. The artifact was like an old printer's block, covered in symbols. Rolling the cylinder in the tray for no good reason would be just plain silly. The blotter was flat already. Rolling the cylinder across it would achieve nothing. No. No. The paint would have just soaked into the blotting paper, but the idea was good. I'd spread blue paint over the bottom of the tray. It was ruined. I was a very bad girl, but also quite a clever one. I'd ruined the tray, but I was on my way to solving a clue. I didn't want to take the tray, but I knew that I could use it. In a way, I was going back to art school. I rolled the artifact in the paint until it was completely coated. Genius! The roller and the paint worked just as I planned, but what did it say? A secret message had been printed on the blotting paper. It was some kind of coded message. It read, "Sub judice." I may not have learned a lot as a journalist, but that was a term I knew well. It means a legal case that is before the courts. Below it was a sequence of letters that made no sense. I suddenly realized there was a connection between the boat ticket and the coded message. The boat ticket was stamped Bateau de la Conciergerie. The Conciergerie on the Ile de la Cité, by the river, housed the ancient law courts. So, sub judice could in this case mean literally under the law courts, below the Conciergerie. I was pretty sure I'd found all I could here. And besides, all this opulence was making me pine for my regular life of poverty. This was a huge story. It was also one heck of a puzzle with a lot of pieces missing. But I was going to crack it. And if I could just remember the name of that fancy prize you get for being an ace journalist, I was definitely going to win it this time. Imelda, I will do everything I can to find the killer.
Thank you, my dear.
And if the police ask,
Don't worry, you were never here.
sub judice was the key. I was going to have to find a way under the Conciergerie. I decided to head straight for the quayside on the Ile de la Cité. If there was a way of getting under the Conciergerie, it would have to be from there. Carchon wasn't the type for messing about on the river. He was up to something down here. Something that got him killed. The Conciergerie. Former royal palace, prison and law courts. And also home to the busiest guillotine in the French Revolution. An old boyfriend of mine owned a barge once. Dampest relationship I ever had, in every way. It was the old boathouse for the Conciergerie. If I was right about the meaning of sub judice, then the answer had to lie somewhere here on the quayside. This fence was a permanent fixture. The fence wouldn't move. This fence was a permanent fixture. This fence wouldn't move either. I wasn't leaving yet. I had a hunch there was more to find. The cross looked familiar. I'd seen it before. It was embroidered on the lace cloth I'd picked up at Carchon's apartment. I knew I was on the right track. I tried pushing the fence, but it wouldn't move. A strange pair of locks stopped the latches from releasing the gate. One down, one to go. Nothing like a good convent education for honing your lockpicking skills. For a room full of junk, that was one very sophisticated lock system. This place was definitely fishy, in more ways than one. It was almost as if the fence was intended to double as a bridge. I really didn't want to pull the fence back up and risk trapping myself in this place. The skiff hadn't been touched for years. I've got an exercise bike just like that. Oops. It was an old shell case, probably from the 50s. I knew what I was talking about. I grew up watching war movies. An old shell case. I wondered what that was doing there. I'd wrecked the skiff. Not that it was particularly seaworthy anyway. Moving the skiff would only damage it more. So, a stone door. There had to be a mechanism to open it. No handle, nothing obvious. But there had to be a way to open it. A rough hole was cut into the pillar. The words sinister and Dexter were carved on either side. Now any good convent girl like me knows the old Roman for left, right, right. But what did it mean here? The hole was too small even for my little hand. I couldn't get my hand in. Nothing happened. The artifact was like an old printer's block, covered in symbols. Mystery solved. Carchon's stone cylinder slotted into the hole with a satisfying click. I made a mistake. The lock reset. A satisfying click told me I turned it to the right position. It felt like tumblers in a safe. Another click, another step closer. I love the sound of locks clicking open. Carchon's cylinder had fitted snugly into the hole. I removed the stone cylinder. Ut lex vel ut next sumito. To the law or unto death, submit. I guess these people didn't believe in liberté, égalité, or fraternité. Yes, I'll admit it. I was a swot at school. I also wore lipstick and the nuns never knew. The cross looked familiar. I'd seen it before. Oh my God! The slab came down with a hell of a force. With nothing to hold it up, the cross dropped back down again. The panel was firmly closed. The panel wouldn't move. Lifting the cross closed the entrance door and also opened some kind of stone panel. Ingenious. This wouldn't hold the cross up, but I was on the right track. I needed to use something sturdier. The brass case was smooth and perfectly round. The stone cross was propped up. Now I was getting somewhere. A round slot precisely carved into the stonework. I touched the slot. Nothing bad happened, which was good. I've always been attached to my fingers. This slot was designed for something specific. But what? The artifact slotted into the hole perfectly. Behind the old walls, I could hear some kind of mechanism groaning into life, but whatever had been triggered had now jammed. A hidden door. This was getting interesting. Shame the mechanism jammed. I was going to have to find a way to prise it open. The gap was too thin for me to get a grip. I needed something thin enough to prise the door open. I was going to need something a lot stronger than a hair clip to free the door. The cross was firmly propped up. I removed the shell case. The cross didn't drop back down. Some kind of mechanism was holding it up. While Carchon's stone cylinder was in the hole, the door back out remained closed. A brass shell case versus a stone slab contest. The stone slab had flattened one end of the shell case. The shell case had been flattened at one end, forming a serrated edge. I needed a gap for leverage. I removed the shell case. Another good use for a shell case. Another secret room. Somebody had something to hide. But was it what I was looking for? Wow! Through the darkness, I could see that this was a stateroom. But for what purpose? And how did it tie in with Carchon? It was an old circuit breaker, like something from a Frankenstein movie. Amazing! The thing still worked. The room lit up bright as day. Turning the lights off wasn't going to help. That was more sensible. Lady Justice stared out from a stone door, which was locked and reinforced with steel bands. A door like that always has something important behind it. I had to find a way to unlock it. A slot next to the safe door. All I had to do was find something to fit into it. It was like being back in kindergarten. All I needed now was a shape that would fit the slot. That wasn't going to help. The flags had faded, but their message was still pretty clear. Fascist regalia, a message of hate. It was pretty clear from the lack of dust that someone had been working very recently at this desk. Oh my God! The sheet was a printout with my personal information. Everything from my favorite food to my waist size. They were right about chocolate, but come on guys, I'm a size 10. There was even a picture of me, taken with a telephoto lens. Carchon wouldn't have taken these pictures himself. This was big. And organized. I was part of it. And people were getting murdered. One thing was clear. Someone connected to Carchon had been watching me. This was the article I'd written about the costume killer. My suspicions were right. Carchon had cut it out. 2 businessmen had been killed. One in Italy, one in Japan. In each case the killer had worn a costume. A penguin and then a snowman. But that wasn't the only link between the 2 murders. Both the victims had been big media do-gooders, and I proved they were just the opposite. So, how did they fit in with Carchon? My articles about the costume killer. The dregs at the bottom of the mug hadn't dried out or gone moldy. It wasn't more than a day old. The congealed coffee wasn't appealing. It was a drawer. I wondered what was inside. Inside the drawer, I found a note written in some kind of code. Don't you just hate it when that happens? The drawer had come out easily enough, but wouldn't fit back into place. A photo, long lost, had fallen down the back of the drawer. It was very old, but there was no mistaking the guy in the foreground. Carchon. Behind him were soldiers, a burning village and a corpse. The photograph was cropped on the right-hand side. Somebody else in the picture obviously didn't want to be in it anymore. I wasn't surprised. This was Africa in the 60s. An uprising was being brutally suppressed. And here was Mr. Media himself, Carchon, doing the suppressing. The photograph was not just powerful evidence. It was also my ticket to one explosive story. There was nothing else in the drawer. The photograph showed Carchon smiling happily to camera, with a background of burning huts and death. I had decrypted the note. It read, Pierre, full report to follow. But this is too urgent to wait. Arno and Yamada both dead. This is not a coincidence. Indeed, it seems that all of us who came together in July are in danger. Take great care. X. I wasn't the only one to make the connection between the costume killer murders. I'd been right all along. That was why he had asked to meet me. But what did I know that he didn't? I had enough for a story. An amazing story that was going to make my reputation and blow Carchon's to pieces. I needed to get home fast and start typing.
Bonsoir, Collard.
Nico, it's Ronnie.
Hey, Ronnie, you cracked open the champagne yet?
Are you crazy?
What's wrong? Wait a minute. You didn't print it, did you?
Course I didn't print.
That's the best piece I've written.
The last, as far as I'm concerned.
It's important.
It's suicidal. You can't destroy a national hero.
He deserved it.
His corpse isn't even cold.
Ronnie, 2 hours ago, I told you what I'd found. You loved it. You begged me to write it up immediately.
2 hours is a long time in newspapers, Nico.
Someone's got to you, haven't they?
Listen up, Nicole, and listen good. Pierre Carchon had a lot of friends, powerful friends. For your own sake.
Forget what happened.
You got it. End of conversation. Good night.
This should have been my big break, but I knew there was nowhere else to sell this story. If Ronnie wouldn't print it, nobody would.
Bonsoir, Collard.
Mademoiselle Collard, my name is Plantard. I need to talk to you about your story. Your Pierre Carchon story.
How did you know about that?
There are people out there, madame, who will be very upset by this story.
Oh, really? Well, it's their lucky day. It's been spiked.
Yes, I know. We must meet.
We must?
I have information relating to your costume killer stories. Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m., Café de la Chandelle Verte, Rue Alain Court. I shall be wearing a grey overcoat. You must talk to no one about this.
You can't tell me what to...
Tomorrow at 8. I'll be waiting.
People complain about newspaper articles all the time, but not usually before they're printed. I was beginning to feel scared. This guy, Plantard, could I trust him? Should I meet him or forget the whole business? I didn't have an answer.
I'd only been in Paris for a week, but already I'd fallen in love with the city. My latest discovery was a little cafe, La Chandelle Verte. I was pretty sure the waitress was taking a shine to me. That old Stobbart charm, I guess. Little did I know my reverie was about to be so rudely interrupted. I examined the jagged glass remaining in the window. It was broken, all right. The table had been overturned by the explosion. I considered straightening the table, but I figured it best not to disturb the evidence. Wrapped around the lamppost was a newspaper. The big story was about the brutal murder of a French media magnate, shot down in cold blood. The guy oozed confidence, like a regular French statesman. The leading article referred to the visit of a Nobel Prize winner from some unpronounceable Eastern European state. The column was devoted exclusively to rumor, gossip, and sensationalism. I noticed the writing at the foot of the page. It read, Salah Eddin, 1345. It was a Paris daily tabloid newspaper, full of sex, scandal, and sports results. It was the body of the old man. It was hard to believe I'd seen him alive only minutes before. The sight of the dead guy's staring eyes turned my knees to jelly. I tried not to meet his stare as I searched the dead man's pockets. No wallet, no papers, no credit cards. The guy's past was a blank page. I checked his pockets. Nothing. Apart from a bit in the middle, the mirror had smashed into 1,000 pieces. Bad luck for someone. I'd hoped the fact that the mirror was already broken meant I'd escaped the bad luck. The mirror had smashed into 1,000 pieces. Bad luck for someone. Poor guy. He was pretty mashed up. A mysteriously undamaged bottle of spirit stood on the bar. I needed a stiff drink, but I hated the taste of brandy. The waitress was clearly suffering from shock.
Oh, my head. Never again. How much vodka did I drink? Oh, no, don't tell me. What is your name, Sherry?
George Stobbart, ma'am. You look like you could use a little help.
I could use a little drink. I feel sick, dizzy, and bruised. I don't even remember the party.
Just relax and take it easy. You've been knocked out.
You don't say. What happened?
There's been an explosion. You should try not to move.
Are you a doctor?
Yes, I am. I studied under Dr. Benton.
Who is he?
Only one of the most brilliant medical minds on this planet. He taught me everything I know about medicine. Can you remember anything at all?
No. I need a drink. Pour me a brandy.
You could be in shock. No alcohol.
Okay, you're the doctor. What about the old man? Is he dead?
Of course not. I didn't want an hysterical French girl on my hands. At least, not right now. Do you remember what happened when the clown entered?
I remember that horrible tune he played all right. It was like a funeral dirge.
I'd never liked accordion music either. Did the clown speak to the old man?
No, he just laughed at him. Then he grabbed the old man's briefcase and ran out of the door.
Did the old man try to stop the clown?
Oh, he didn't have a chance. The clown dropped his accordion and ran out of the door. That's it. That's all I can remember.
Did you know the old man?
No, monsieur. I never saw him before.
How did the old man behave?
Well, agitated. He kept looking about him at the door, at his watch.
As if he was waiting for someone?
Yes, I suppose so. He was worried about something, that's for sure. If you ask me, he was having an affair. He had that look about him, like a guilty husband.
Did you see what the old man had in his briefcase?
No, he didn't open it.
What did the old man do when the clown snatched his briefcase?
Nothing. He just sat there like he was frozen.
Did this newspaper belong to the old gentleman?
I don't know.
Someone has scribbled a note on it. It reads, Salah Ed-Din, 1345. Does that mean anything to you?
No, monsieur, nothing.
Stay here, mademoiselle. I'm going to look around for evidence.
Freeze! Hold it, right there.
Whoa, don't shoot. I'm innocent. I'm an American.
Can't make up your mind, huh?
I demand to see the American consul.
Drop your weapons and get down on the ground.
Put that thing away, Sergeant Moo. I apologize, monsieur, but I cannot permit you to leave.
Am I under arrest?
Ah, no, I would simply like to ask you some questions. En avant, to the café, marche.